Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are jumping into something that is literally mind-blowing. We're going to see how an ancient, simple $7 powder mathematically and physically outperforms your standard, super expensive mechanical air conditioning unit. If you've ever felt like you're fighting a losing battle against the summer heat, this explainer is absolutely going to change how you view your home and honestly, the entire science of staying cool.
Okay, let's dive right into this because your AC unit is kind of lying to you about what it actually does. We all tend to think our air conditioner creates cold air, right? Nope, entirely wrong. Your standard AC is just a heat mover. It takes heat that's already inside your house and just works to dump it outside. But this simple, dirt-cheap powder we're going to talk about, it's a heat stopper. It physically prevents the heat from ever entering your home in the first place.
But before we uncover exactly how this heat stopper works, I want to test your intuition for a second. Think about that standard commercial white paint you always see on flat commercial rooftops. What percentage of sunlight do you think that paint actually reflects? Is it A, 50%, B, 65%, C, 80%, or D, 98%? Keep your guess in mind, because the truth about this number is going to reveal exactly how heat is secretly invading our homes.
Section 1. The Solar Loading Trap.
Look, to understand the solution, we've got to understand the problem. And if you are just totally miserable in the summer, your suffering is incredibly valid. Here's why. A standard dark asphalt shingle roof absorbs between 85 and 95% of all incoming solar radiation. All that energy converts straight into heat and bakes right through your roof deck. Because of this, attic temperatures in the summer regularly hit a sweltering 140 degrees or higher. I mean, you literally have an oven sitting right above your ceiling.
And this massive oven effect? That is what we call the solar loading trap. Your dark roof absorbs the sun's rays, turns them into just an insane amount of heat, and then radiates that heat downward into your living space 24/7. So your AC isn't actually fighting the hot outside air. It's fighting the giant heat-soaked roof you're living directly underneath. That's exactly why your AC runs constantly on hot days, even if your doors and windows are sealed perfectly tight.
Section 2. The Ancient Cooling Secret.
So how on earth do we stop this trap? Let's take a look at how this builds over time because the history here is just incredible. Way back in 1500 BC, the Minoans and ancient Greeks were already using hydrated lime to cool their structures. Fast forward to 1973. A Lawrence Berkeley National Lab study took that exact same Greek grandmother recipe, just powdered limestone and water, and put it on a roof. The result? The roof temperature plummeted by an astonishing 40 degrees. The inside dropped 8 degrees, and the building needed zero AC all summer. And then recently in 2021, Purdue University stepped up and proved the actual modern physics behind why this works so flawlessly.
Oh, and let's jump back to that quiz from earlier. If you guessed C, 80%, you nailed it. Standard commercial white paint reflects about 80% of sunlight. Which sounds pretty great, right? But here is the massive catch. Even at 80% reflectance, that remaining 20% absorption is a huge problem. On a typical 1,000 square foot roof, absorbing just 20% of the sun's rays still generates the thermal equivalent of 2 to 3 kilowatts of continuous heavy heat. So yes, white paint definitely helps, but it absolutely doesn't solve the problem.
Section 3. Physics of Passive Cooling.
So the crucial point is how we actually push past that 80% barrier. It all comes down to two mechanisms. The first one is shortwave solar rejection, or what we can just playfully call the solar bounce. This is a surface's ability to bounce incoming visible and near-infrared sunlight right back into the atmosphere before it ever gets a chance to turn into heat inside your house. Hydrated lime naturally reflects a whopping 95 to 98% of this radiation. It stops the heat at the physical source before the energy ever becomes a headache for you.
But wait, it gets even better with the second mechanism, radiative sky cooling. The thermodynamics happening here are absolutely fascinating. You see, these highly reflective surfaces don't just reject new heat, they actively grab heat that is already stored in the surface and radiate it back out to the freezing cold sky as long-wave infrared energy. And they do this even during the peak of the day.
This effect is literally so powerful that these surfaces can measure colder than the ambient air around them right in the middle of a hot afternoon. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference in efficiency between these two approaches. Think about what your AC does. It works incredibly hard to pump heat sideways out of your house, right into 95-degree outdoor air. That is such an uphill battle. But lime and these highly reflective coatings, they dump heat vertically, radiating it straight out towards space. And since space sits at roughly 3 degrees above absolute zero, it acts as the ultimate coldest heat sink in the universe. This is the sky dump advantage, and this ancient system just taps right into it.
Let's look at the raw numbers from that 2021 Purdue University proof. Professor Shulin Ron engineered an ultra-white coating using barium sulfate that achieved an insane 98.1% reflectance. When you look at the actual cooling power per 1,000 square feet, a standard residential central AC unit outputs about 3 to 5 kilowatts of cooling power, but that ultra-white coating, it cranks out 10 kilowatts of continuous cooling power. It completely beats standard mechanical AC by a factor of 2 to 3, and it does the whole shebang without consuming a single watt of electricity.
Section 4. The billion-dollar cover-up.
So obviously, if the physics are this proven, why isn't every single roof in America painted white? Well, according to the source materials analysis, it boils down to a few massive systemic factors. First, homeowner associations all over the country explicitly mandate earth tones, browns, tans, dark grays. These colors mathematically maximize solar absorption and practically guarantee your AC never stops running. Second, building codes largely don't even include lime coatings as approved options. And economically, calcium hydroxide is an unpatentable commodity. You literally buy it for $7 a bag. Corporations cannot create a recurring subscription model out of dirt and water. A coating that drops AC usage by 60 to 70% is obviously viewed as a huge threat to a $130 billion HVAC industry and a $200 billion paint industry.
Let's do a super quick knowledge check to make sure all these numbers are sinking in. Based on that Purdue study, a 1,000 square foot roof coated with ultra-white paint generates how much continuous cooling power? Is it A, 2 kilowatts, B, 5 kilowatts, C, 10 kilowatts, or D, 15 kilowatts? If you remember from just a minute ago, the answer is C, 10 kilowatts, more than double your standard AC unit.
Section 5. Beating the thermal mass trap.
Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is that just painting your roof actually isn't quite enough to replicate the full effect. We have to look at the whole picture and beat the thermal mass trap. This happens when the dense physical materials of your home, the concrete, the brick, the drywall, just soak up solar radiation all day. Even if your roof is perfectly reflective, your dark exterior walls act like massive, slow-release thermal batteries. They absorb the sun all afternoon, and then they slowly radiate that heat inward, essentially cooking you from the inside out all night long. Those ancient Mediterranean builders, they understood this intuitively. That's exactly why they painted every single exterior surface white. If you want to shut off that thermal battery for good, here are the priority surfaces you need to hit. Number 1 is the roof, because it takes the direct overhead sun at its maximum intensity. Number 2 is your south-facing wall, which gets the longest direct exposure across the entire arc of the sun. And finally, you target your east and west walls, which just get hammered during the morning and afternoon peak hours. Treating all these surfaces effectively shuts down the thermal mass trap entirely, and the materials to do this for an average home cost under $50. So how do you actually pull this off? It's incredibly straightforward. Here's the exact 4,000-year-old lime wash recipe that anyone can go do today. Step 1. Take 1 part Type S hydrated lime. This is just calcium hydroxide, and you can grab it at any hardware store for about $7 to $14 a bag. Step 2. Mix it with 2 parts water until you get a thin, watery paint consistency. You definitely don't want a thick paste. Step 3. Apply 2 full coats to a clean, dry surface using a thick nap roller or a wide brush, just making sure you let that first coat dry completely overnight.
And the real-world results of doing this are just undeniable. Let's look at this case study from the source material. A homeowner in Texas applied this exact formula.
Before the lime wash, his peak afternoon attic temperature was a blistering 143 degrees. After the lime wash, at the exact same time of day, it dropped down to 97 degrees. You guys, that is a 46-degree drop from a couple bags of powder. His indoor temperature fell 10 degrees without his AC even having to run at full load, and he estimated his electricity savings at over $1,200 for just a single summer. When you compare that to a $5,000 to $15,000 new AC installation, the math is staggering.
We've seen today how passive solar rejection just fundamentally outperforms mechanical cooling, but I really want to leave you with a thought that goes way beyond just saving money on your electricity bill. When the power grid inevitably goes down and your expensive AC completely stops working during a brutal summer heat wave, what keeps you alive? Understanding this ancient passive physics isn't just about efficiency, it might actually be the ultimate survival tactic. Think about that for a bit, and we'll see you in the next explainer.